The de facto head of Samsung Group, Lee Jae-yong, will be released from prison on parole Friday morning, almost 7 months after he was sent back to prison, sentenced in a bribery case involving former President Park Geun-hye. He's one of 810 prisoners granted parole, as this is the custom for National Liberation Day, August 15th. This could help Samsung Electronics speed up some of its major investment plans and M&A projects. For more on this, we have our own Min Suk-hyen here in the studio today. Welcome back, Suk-hyen.
Thank you.
Well, so the Justice Ministry has decided to grant parole to the Vice Chairman of Samsung Electronics, Lee Jae-yong. This is a controversial decision, it has to be said. How did the government decide to do this?
Well, Devin, Samsung Group heir Lee Jae-yong was granted parole on Monday after a long meeting by the Justice Ministry's parole committee. He will be released on Friday morning at 10 a.m. The ministry explained that his parole was decided after considering the economic situation both home and abroad. But there's been a mixed response to Monday's decision. The business community welcomed Lee Jae-yong's parole, saying that it was necessary for the economy, especially at a time when swift decisions have to be made amid a global chip shortage and an ongoing pandemic. However, labor and civic groups disagreed, saying that the billionaire received preferential treatment.
Okay, so ultimately the government decided it was in the national interest to have Lee Jae-yong out of prison. Still, he won't be able to go back to work as normal.
That's correct. Since this is a parole and not a pardon, he will be barred from running Samsung Group for the time being. This is because he's still subject to a 5-year employment restriction, which was imposed by the Justice Ministry this year after he was found guilty in January's retrial. So he'll need a special exemption from the ministry if he wants to return to the office and make overseas business trips. Also, it will be quite hard for him to immediately get back to work and fully concentrate on running the company because he still faces 2 other legal battles. One relates to the controversial merger of 2 Samsung affiliates in 2015, Jaeyongs Industries and Samsung C&T, which is believed to have served as a key step toward his succession. He's also expected to face trial this month for his alleged use of propofol, a strictly controlled sedative.
So Lee Jae-yong won't quite be back at work, not yet at least, but it sounds like this can only be good for the company. It'll help him get involved in key decisions like some major investments in the chip business that Samsung is planning.
That's correct. This is because key decisions on such huge investments can only be made by Lee Jae-yong himself, given the corporate structure of the company. So once Samsung de facto leader is out, decisions on major investment and M&A deals can be carried out faster and easier. There have been concerns that his absence could be slowing Samsung Electronics in the global high-tech chip race. Its rival TSMC, the world's largest chip maker, accounting for 54% of the global foundry revenue last year, plans to spend $100 billion over the next 3 years in a bid to expand its chip manufacturing capacity. Meanwhile, Intel Corporation announced plans to jump into the foundry business and spend up to $20 billion to build 2 factories in Arizona. So it's also in talks to buy Global Foundries, the world's 3rd largest foundry company as well. And if that's the case, then it'll be a very difficult situation for Samsung Electronics. And to stay competitive, industry watchers say that Samsung Electronics should be speeding up investment to close the gap with its foundry rivals.
In this situation, semiconductor manufacturing companies need to actively invest and make bold decisions quickly. In this sense, Lee Jae-yong's parole is expected to be helpful in making investment decisions, even if it's difficult for him to directly participate in management.
Well, Suk-hyen, the memory chip business is obviously huge for Samsung. It's huge for South Korea as a whole, making up a lot of the country's exports. And the numbers you're talking about there in the tens and hundreds of billions, it's quite a big deal. How's the chip industry doing overall?
Well, South Korea's supremacy in the memory chip market has come under challenge. Last year, SK Hynix and US-based Micron Technology announced the development of cutting-edge technologies of DRAM and NAND flash memory chips. It appears that Samsung Electronics may be losing its competitive edge as smaller rivals develop advanced memory chips. But an expert here says that's not really the case.
It's true that there are concerns Samsung Electronics may be lagging behind its competitors in memory chip technology. But just developing advanced chips is not enough. Mass production technology is also important in the memory chip business. And since Samsung is still ahead in terms of technical skills and production scale, it's hard to say that it's losing its lead in the industry.
Well, Suk-hyen, of all these big investment plans we're talking about here, in May, Samsung announced that it's investing $17 billion to build a chip plant in the U.S. Do we know what's happening with that?
Well, Devin, I talked to Samsung Electronics about the $17 billion investment plan they have. But for now, nothing has been decided, not even the location of the U.S. chip factory. But it's widely expected that Lee Jae-yong's return will help finalize the plan, as the project is seen as a move by Samsung to counter the world's top foundry player, TSMC.
Upon his return, Samsung will likely decide on the location of its U.S. chip factory and plan how to remain competitive in the global foundry business.
Lee Jae-yong's parole is likely to speed up other pending investment decisions as well, such as Samsung SDI's plan to build a battery factory in the U.S. Hopes are also running high that his parole could help solve potential problems with the supply of Moderna vaccines amid delayed shipments from the U.S. biotech company. Samsung Biologistics is expected to deliver its first batch of Moderna vaccines manufactured at its local plant this month after signing a deal with the U.S. pharmaceutical company.
Well, Suk-hyen, this story, Lee Jae-yong's release on parole, has been making headlines all around the world, and your thorough reporting today has helped us get a much better understanding of this story. So we appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.